What's up, y'all? Welcome to Original Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Ryan, and this week I'm joined by Joel Watt.
Hello, friends.
And you'll notice I skipped Nolan. He had something come up last minute where he couldn't join us. So it's just me and him. We're going to hold the fort down, and it'll still be good. So
yeah, we're going to have a good time.
Heck yeah, we are. So this week, we're going to talk about Donkey Kong Country, as we discovered during a train wreck of a game of 20 questions last week.
I was the only one who didn't like it, apparently. But it's okay. We'll do it again this time.
Yes, we'll give it a shot.
The game. It's only you and LJ. LJ's listening.
I know.
Oh.
So it'll be interesting with just me and I guess LJ through text chat. But anyway, that's the end of the show when we find out what it is that Joel has picked for us next week. But before we get too deep into this, how's your week been, Joel?
I've had the longest non-holiday week of my career in ministry. It's been crazy. Yeah, so I have not had a chance to play Donkey Kong Country this week. Yeah.
It seems to be an unfortunate trend with us. Hey, play a game with us. We didn't play it.
Yeah, we didn't play it. No, I'm definitely going to play next week's game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a crazy week. I had to build a new computer for the main sanctuary, and it was supposed to be working by Sunday, and it was not. So we didn't have lyrics or PowerPoint for Sunday.
Yeah.
And that was not fun. But then I got it working on Monday, and then like Tuesday, the song select integration went down on Pro Presenter, so like I couldn't import any new songs, and it was difficult. Mm-hmm. And since it's a new computer, all the songs are new, and so
yeah,
it was fun. The life and times of an AV ministry leader.
Okay, so you use Pro Presenter or PowerPoint?
Yeah, we use Pro Presenter. Like, you can import PowerPoint presentations because it's easier to make one. Like, for the pastor, it's easier to make a PowerPoint for him, and then I just import it into Pro Presenter. But like, yeah, all the lyrics are new through Pro Presenter, and you're supposed to be able to just open Song Select within Pro Presenter and grab all the information you need automatically, and it was not working.
No.
Like Song Select's API went down, so all their third-party things were not working.
Well, that stinks.
Yeah, and I worked on it for like 2 hours before I finally went to their Twitter. Like, I just searched Song Select in Google, and the Twitter was the first thing that popped up and said, "We're having trouble." And they tweeted like 4 hours ago, and I was just like, "It's not even my fault." I was trying everything, like. Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to bore our listeners with all my problems, but
well, I am curious because you said you were building a computer, but as far as I know, Pro Presenter is a Macintosh only program.
No, it's not. Right? It's a Windows also, but they definitely just ported the Mac app over to Windows because everything looks like it belongs on Mac.
Yeah. I think last time I spoke with anybody about it in any detail, I think Pro Presenter was. Either it was a Mac-only program or maybe just the Windows version wasn't very good. I'm not sure, but
it's definitely built for Mac, and so the Mac version would be better. But you can't build a Mac for $400 or $500.
That's true. You can't.
You can't even buy one for $500.
Like, you could buy a Mac Mini.
Do they even still sell those?
I have no idea. And even if they did, why would I want one? It's so underpowered.
Exactly.
My Android phone probably has more horsepower in it than a Mac Mini.
The demands for Pro Presenter are actually pretty high. We have an older MacBook, and it is like 0.1 gigahertz too slow. Like, it is almost there.
Wow.
And I could not believe it. Like, it installed Pro Presenter, it launched. As soon as I went to go present something, it crashed.
That's fun.
What the heck? This is why we had to spend $500 on a new computer.
Right.
It's a nice computer for $500 because we save money by me building it.
Yes.
Anyway,
the joys of a PC.
Your week been?
Up until a couple of days ago, it was pretty good. But Wednesday night, okay, so I started playing drums for the youth group at my church.
Cool.
And I have not played drums regularly in many years because I don't own a drum set anymore because I live in an apartment, and even if I did, my neighbors would probably not appreciate me playing it.
Yeah.
And I don't like electric kits like at all. So
don't sound right.
Right. So I just don't have one. I would that's how much I don't like them. I would rather not play than play on an electric drum kit.
Yeah.
So that the last Wednesday night when I was playing, this was only the second time I'd been playing. The kit that they have up there is old and dirty, and no one's been taking care of it. And it's because they haven't had a drummer, and the youth leader doesn't want to buy a new kit until a drummer comes up there and plays it regularly. Because I guess they've had people say, "Yeah, I'll come play," and then they play for 3 weeks and leave. And he's like, "I'm not going to go spend $600 or whatever on a kit just for it to not get played." So it's this old thing
that's we spent way more than that on our kit that we don't use.
Right. So so I dig this thing out of their closet and I play it, but it has, snare, bass, a floor tom, a crash cymbal that has a crack in it that I'm using.
Wonderful.
I'm using it as a ride cymbal because I don't have a ride. And the hi-hats are actually pretty nice. I was surprised to discover that. But there's no bass drum mounted toms. I think it has some, but there's no heads on the bottom of them, and they just sound awful. So,
they would be all boomy.
Yeah, so I just don't use them. Well, we're playing, and in the middle of the very last song, which is kind of a slower song, I hear this kind of banging sound. To me, it doesn't sound very loud because I'm wearing a pair of headphones that I have that I actually take to the gun range, so they block out most of the sound, but they've got an audio input. But I hear it a little bit, so I look up and I'm like, what in the world fell? And I notice some of the kids are pointing in my direction and giggling. So I look down, and laying across the bass drum is the roof of the drum cage that I'm behind. And I'm like, oh my goodness. This thing could have fell on my head. I mean, not that it's like a piece of foam, so it's not like it would hurt. But since I didn't even really know what was happening, I didn't even miss a beat. So everybody was like, dude, that was really cool. And I'm like, no, the truth of the matter is I didn't even know what happened. So, then when we're done, I get up from, I take my headphones off and I get it from the drum kit, and I realize that why it fell is that the entire right half of the drum shield had fallen off the stage.
No way.
And that I didn't even notice. So I was like, what in the world?
The whole thing just fell apart.
Basically.
Oh, man.
So I tell my wife, I was like, yeah, man, I brought the house down at you.
Yeah, you did.
But then while I'm talking to my wife, she's on her way to a friend's house because we're getting ready for this wedding. And so she's got a friend that's, I guess, practicing doing her hair, which I didn't know was a thing people did, but guess I learned something new Wednesday. She's halfway there on a bridge going over the bay, and her car just stops.
Oh man.
It's not getting any gas, and when she turns the car off and tries to turn it back on, and it won't start. So now we're down to one car, and between that and trying to pay for the wedding and me having just recently quit my job to go into ministry, which I obviously money for a new venture isn't going to start pouring in right away. So even though it's the ministry is, which by the way, the ministry needs a name. So if you're listening to this and you're familiar with what I do by going to my website and you have any suggestions for me, I'm open because I'm tired of calling it the ministry. But anyway, so between all of that, money's really
like a hipster
tight.
Coffee shop. I'm sorry, it's a ministry.
Between all of that, it's just money's tight. But we, I told my wife because that night I was really like, okay, God, I took this step of faith, and now all of the stuff is happening. And then my wife and some other people reminded me that, sometimes when you do step out in faith, your faith gets tested and the enemy starts attacking you. And I don't want this podcast to get all preachy and stuff, but that's kind of what I took away from it Wednesday. So just lots of prayer over that and trusting that the Lord didn't tell me to quit my job so that he could watch me flounder around and die, because he's not that kind of guy.
No, he's not cruel and vindictive.
No,
as so many atheists would have you believe.
Exactly. So, that's been my week, but today's good, and today we're going to have some fun talking about this is my favorite 2D platformer that is not a Mario game.
Okay.
This is, like Mario World is probably my favorite 2D platformer of all time.
Let's talk about some other good news before we talk about Donkey Kong Country.
Okay.
In my Facebook news feed, I saw that the World Video Game Hall of Fame, which is a brand new thing, it's just why you've never heard of it,
yes,
has 6 inductees for their inaugural class. And they are Grand Theft Auto 3, The Legend of Zelda, which we talked about last week, The Oregon Trail, The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and Space Invaders. So that's pretty cool that 2 out of the 6 games we have already discussed. I guess GTA 3 is eligible for classic status. It's on PlayStation 2. So.
Yes.
And of course, all those other games are too.
Right. There's no Mario game in that list, huh?
No Mario game in the inductee class.
Interesting.
Not even Donkey Kong. But they got Space Invaders, so...
Yeah. I mean, those are all... I wouldn't knock any of those games off. Just maybe they decided to limit it to 6 on purpose, and since they already had Zelda...
Yeah, it's like you can only have one from a major developer.
Right. That makes sense. Man, all of those games are... I'm trying to think of, games that in the video game industry have been like game changers. Pardon the bad pun, but and we don't see very many games that really change the course of the industry anymore. I think the last Grand Theft Auto 3 might have been the last time that I can remember playing a game and going, "This changes everything."
Yeah. I thought the Wii would change everything, and it didn't.
Right. It changed everything for like a year.
Yeah.
And then we all got tired of it, and we're like, yeah, that was fun. Give me a gamepad again. Yep. And Nintendo goes, sure, we'll give you a gamepad with
motion control.
Yeah, and a giant screen in the middle of it.
You didn't like motion controls? Well, let's put motion controls in a regular controller. How about that? and we'll throw it in a tablet. Okay, for free.
Right. And the funny thing, if we can sit on that for just a few minutes, Splatoon, I like Splatoon. I think what they did with the motion controls in Splatoon was good, but oddly enough, I would rather play that game with a Wii Remote and nunchuck, and I can't. Oh. I have to either use the gamepad or they have this diagram where you can tie a Wii Remote to the Pro Controller, because the Wii U Pro Controller doesn't have motion controls in it.
Yeah.
So you can strap a Wii Remote to a Pro Controller using the Wii Remote's wrist strap or something.
Are you kidding me?
Right. This is something
an actual Nintendo suggested thing.
Yes. That if you don't want to use the giant gamepad, you can do this. And it's like, what? And why are you doing that? And I've actually thought the same thing about Star Fox Zero. Now, I understand the reason why they want you to use the screen is because you've got a more close-up view of everything on the screen for that precision. But every now and then, I don't need that super precision. I really just want to be able to move the aimer on the TV, and that would be so much easier with a Wii Remote and nunchuck, and it's not an option. It's like, why? So, hopefully hopefully they've learned their lesson, and the NX, which there was a lot of NX news that came out this week. This is a retro game show, so we're not going to talk about it really at all. You can go to other sources for all of that stuff, but I really hope that they get this right, because I love Nintendo, and yeah, I mean Nintendo's got billions of dollars sitting around in the bank. They're not, when people compare, like, oh, they're like Sega and they're going to go away. No, Sega had a ton of other problems besides the fact that they couldn't get anybody to buy their stuff. You know, they had debt and a whole bunch of other things that they just couldn't deal with. Nintendo, I think I read somewhere that Nintendo could launch flops for the next 10 years and before they drained their money. So
yeah,
but anyway, on to happier things. Oh, but that news that you mentioned, that's really cool. I'd be excited to see what else they do with this. What was it called? The
World Video Game Hall of Fame.
Video Game Hall of Fame. So that's cool.
Yeah,
it's about time we got a Hall of Fame for us nerds.
Yeah, it's run by the Strong Museum, which is a video game museum, as far as I know.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, in their official Hall of Fame class picture, the Sonic box art, or they had a physical box actually, was a not for resale box. So it's pretty rare.
That's the one that comes packaged or came packaged with the Genesis, I assume.
Oh, is it? I thought that would have been like the retail demo, something like that.
Well, I just know that I knew people with Sega Genesis. What's the plural of Sega Genesis? I don't know.
Genesis.
But right,
still.
but
like gear.
Yes, that had a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog that said "not for resale" on it. So I just assumed it came packaged.
Okay, I didn't know that. I never had one.
Yeah. So I could be very wrong. If you're listening to this and tweet at us at official OGcast on Twitter and tell us how wrong we are.
We're not offended if you correct us.
No, we really
welcome.
None of us are going to move to Canada if you make us upset. At least that I know of. Okay, Nolan might, but he's not here to defend himself. And Nolan, if you're listening, and I hope you are. I hope you know, since you're not here, we're going to pick on you because we love you. All right, moving on to Donkey Kong Country. So this was developed by Rare, who we have talked about on an earlier episode of the show when we talked about Banjo-Kazooie, another fantastic platformer. Donkey Kong Country is obviously a 2D platformer. It was not produced. It was published by Nintendo, which makes sense. Nintendo owns Donkey Kong, and consequently, they own all of the characters that Rare created for this, despite the fact that Rare is no longer part of Nintendo anymore. I've always thought that was interesting. Because you created characters to exist within someone else's IP, you don't get to keep them. And I'm like, that's lame.
Yeah, but I mean, it worked out in Nintendo's favor. Sorry, I just dropped something. It worked out in Nintendo's favor recently when they ported things to the Wii and Wii U.
Yes.
So, but no Banjo because that's all Rare.
Yep. Banjo and Conquer and Perfect Dark are all wholly owned by Rare. Also, what's that beat 'em up? Battletoads. That's
Battletoads.
Which
the hardest game ever.
Yes. And Microsoft keeps kind of hinting that I think one of the Battletoads was playable.
It's ended up in KI.
And Killer Instinct. Their Killer Instinct that they've got going on. Okay, so the directors of this game are two brothers, Tim and Chris Stamper, who some of you may be familiar with. They don't quite have the name recognition that folks like Miyamoto or, say, Jason Jones over at Bungie have, but they're big names nonetheless. I know the first time I had ever heard of them was when they left Rare after Microsoft bought them, and like the internet kind of exploded into, oh, Rare is never going to be the same, and and it turned out to be true.
Yeah, they were right.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to the internet, kids.
Yes, the internet is always right. That's not even a little bit true.
Not even remote. No.
It's not very often that I think like a company could say, or someone could say that a company is really just one or two people. And I think with the Stamper brothers, that was very true of Rare. Also, I'm never going to remember their names because they had strange ones, I think. But the two guys that created Call of Duty when they left Infinity Ward to start Respawn, everybody was like, oh, Call of Duty will never be the same. And if you ask me, that's turned out to be true because I don't like most of the recent Call of Duty games, but they still sell really well, so someone out there likes them, and I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Wake up, sheeple.
That's right. I would even argue that as much as I am not a huge Apple fan, I had mad respect for Steve Jobs as a salesperson and the work that he did at Apple. And even though I think, Apple's still, of course, very healthy and very popular with people, they're not quite the same now that Jobs is gone. It seems like a very different company. But anyway, so yeah, Tim and Chris Stamper, they were definitely the heart and soul of Rare, and they are sorely missed at that company. Having replaced them at the company, but in relation to this game, he was the designer of Donkey Kong Country, is Greg Malis, and he's still with Rare. I want to say he runs the place pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
He had started working on an idea that eventually turned into Viva Pinata. And I know that the Stampers were still at Rare when this idea started floating around. He saw that come to life, and of course, Viva Pinata is very influenced by Animal Crossing. Which is another Nintendo property. Animal Crossing is one of those. It's like doing chores, but somehow it's not the most boring thing in the world.
Somehow they make it fun because it's a game, and games are meant to be fun. That's
right. I thought the same thing the first time I played Harvest Moon. I was like, how is this fun? And I started playing it and went, it somehow is. And I'm like the world's worst farmer. But anyway, Greg Malis also worked. He's worked on stuff even outside of Rare, according to our go-to source for all things retro games, Wikipedia. He worked on the Xbox 360 version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I wonder if they threw in like Rare characters for that version.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Because weren't there like exclusive characters to the different versions? Or maybe I'm imagining things.
I have I guess the sequel to this one, Transformed.
Mm-hmm.
I've got it for PC and I think Vita. And there's all kinds of, like, Danica Patrick is in it.
Okay.
Like, yeah. So there's all kinds of weird random stuff in it. So who knows? Maybe there are rare characters in
one of the versions of Transformed had Wreck-It Ralph in it. And it was like you could actually play Candy Rush or whatever, Sugar Rush.
Right.
For, the racing game from the movie.
Uh-huh.
So
that I think he's I don't know if he's in the PC version, but I know he's popped up in the Vita version when I've been playing. And it's that game is a competent kart racer. A lot of people compare it to Mario Kart, but it's definitely more along the lines of Diddy Kong Racing.
Okay.
And
I've seen it, and like it's called Transformed because you transform into different vehicles.
Right.
So yeah, it looks fun. I just never bought it.
Yeah, it's good. I think it was part of a really cheap Sega Steam sale a while ago, and and I picked it up with that. Okay, art directors for this game: Steve Malis, who is the younger brother of Greg, who we were just talking about, Kevin Bayless, and Adrian Smith. I don't know any of these names, but I assume they've done other good work at Rare.
Kevin Bayless does sound familiar. I'm going to look him up right now.
Okay.
Which designer did voice actor, worked at Rare till 2005. Additional artwork and character design for Battletoads, Donkey Kong Country, Diddy Kong Racing. He worked on Perfect Dark Zero.
Oh.
He now works with Playtonic Games.
If I were him, I wouldn't wanting people to know that I worked on Perfect Dark Zero.
Well, this is on the Rare Wiki.
Yeah. Playtonic, that's the group that's doing Yooka-Laylee, right? I
do believe so.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait for that game. I didn't get in on the Kickstarter, which I'm sad about, but I will definitely be picking it up for...
Speaking of overhyped Kickstarted games, Mighty Number 9 finally got a release date.
I heard that.
A solid release date, not where they're not going to push it back. They promised.
Right. Well, I'll believe that when I see it, but I'm excited because I know Joe Morgan over on the Geeks Under Grace podcast, he kickstarted that, and every time it got pushed back, he was very sure to let everyone know how upset he was about that.
I've known Joe for a little over a year, and every time he was very upset. He's been talking about that game forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I've gotten to know him, it seems like he doesn't get upset over a lot of things. He's not very easily offended, but apparently when he gives you money expecting you to release a game and you don't do it, that's enough to get him a little riled up there. So,
just a little too much for him.
Yeah.
Where's my game?
Hey, I understand. You give someone, $10, $15, $20 or whatever, and you don't get what you paid for. That's upsetting. So, but hopefully Mighty Number 9 turns out real well. We haven't, for those of you who are not familiar with that is created by the guy that created Mega Man. How do you say that dude's name?
Eiji Inafune.
That's it. And he's of course a real big heavy hitter in the games industry who left Capcom a while back. There seemed like there was some drama over that. And I'm sure that here on this podcast, we will eventually play a Mega Man game because goodness knows there's enough of them that fit our criteria for retro.
There are 10 in the Classic Series. I want to say 8 in the X Series.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many spin-offs and network games.
Right. And then there's that, what was that 3D game that was on PlayStation?
Oh, Mega Man Legends. There were 2 of those.
Yeah.
2 or 3. There was supposed to be a Mega Man Legends 3 that never came out, but there were spin-off games also.
Right.
Never came to the States.
And Mega Man was part of Captain N? Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he talked like this. And
yes.
Everything.
And I think he also had a cartoon series, like a solo
He did.
thing.
He had his own cartoon series. And
yep.
There's an incredibly derpy picture of Mega Man from that cartoon series, and it's hilarious. And I love it.
Yeah.
I watched that cartoon more than I played the game.
Speaking of cartoons, Donkey Kong had a cartoon.
It indeed.
For a while. I've never seen it, but I guess he had some weird, like almost addiction to. Didn't he say some weird catchphrase with bananas?
Banana Slamma.
That's it.
That's man.
It. Yeah, unfortunately, well, I don't know if unfortunately is the right word, but I've never seen the show. I've just heard about it, and it sounds like everything you would expect a Saturday morning cartoon to be that's based on a property that the people who made it probably never played in their life.
Yep.
Oh, and this, my friends, is why Nintendo is so cautious when giving up their licenses for people to make things. That and the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yep, that was the nail in the coffin. I can't believe they gave up Donkey Kong Country after that. But like, they have said multiple times the reason why they will never do another movie is because of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yep. I wonder how much influence Rare would have had over the Donkey Kong Country.
I'm pretty sure that Nintendo didn't have a lot of control over things back then.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Anyway, my favorite part of this game, we're going to talk about one of maybe my favorite composer in video games. I don't know. It probably depends on what day of the week you ask me, because I have so many composers I love. But David Wise is a phenomenal composer. There are certainly songs in this game that I like more than others, but I don't know that there's a song in the game that I just don't like. I like pretty much everything in it. And then on Wikipedia, this other person's name popped up, Evelyn Fisher. I hadn't heard of her. Let's see. She's got, there's a link to her on here. Oh, it says she's really just done stuff with Rare. She did most of the tracks for Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, and did voice acting and sound effects for games like Perfect Dark. Oh, she's the voice of Joanna Dark on the N64 game.
Nice.
Yep. Which I know is different from the 360 sequel Perfect Dark Zero. Because they don't sound anything alike at all.
That's why they specifically said for the N64 Perfect Dark.
Exactly. So, but yeah, it looks like she's really just done stuff for Rare. So she's in good company there.
Very cool.
Yep. So now, while the series Donkey Kong Country was not created by Shigeru Miyamoto, the character most certainly was, as he's the creator of the original Donkey Kong arcade game.
Yep.
Starred Donkey Kong and Jumpman, which is what Mario was called before becoming Mario. And the maiden's name was Pauline?
I want to say Pauline.
Mm-hmm. And you don't really see her. And like they've dug Daisy kind of out of obscurity and put her in some of the Mario sports games. And I guess like she's in Mario Kart. She's not a playable character in Smash Brothers, but I think
no. But there's a Daisy skin for Peach.
Yeah. So
and there has been since Melee.
Right. But Pauline, you don't really see much. There's a story that I read a while ago that a guy whose daughter was playing Donkey Kong and made a comment about how come she couldn't play as a girl. So this guy modded the code so that Jumpman was the person being kidnapped and Pauline was Jumpman. I mean, it sounded like it was just a simple like sprite swap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty neat. But that was the last time I heard anything about Pauline. There's that Donkey Kong Game Boy game that was actually really, really good.
Yes, I want to say that you're supposed to be rescuing Pauline in that game.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering if that was her, if it was supposed to be Peach or Princess Toadstool. So, but yeah, Donkey Kong Country is available for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. There is a really, really, really bad port of it for Game Boy Color. There's another port, which I'm sure is much more faithful to the Super Nintendo game, for the Game Boy Advance. And then it was re-released on Virtual Console for Wii, Wii U, and new Nintendo 3DS. And that distinction on new Nintendo 3DS is important because your regular 3DS will not play Super Nintendo Virtual Console games.
Because of Mode 7.
That's right. So be aware of that, because I'm pretty sure my wife uses a regular 3DS XL, and I don't think that eShop filters out the Super Nintendo games.
Oh, really?
Which, well, I mean, because it's the same eShop.
Like, yeah, but that's dangerous.
Yeah.
They need to have like big bold letters. This is only for new Nintendo 3DS.
And it probably does. I just remember April looking on there and making mention of, oh, like I can get this game, and me being like, no, you can't.
Sorry, honey.
And the release date for this was in November 1994. That's all Wikipedia says. And with this game being developed by a British developer, I would guess that if it came out like spread out over several months, like most games back then did, that it probably hit Western territories before it hit Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't be 100% certain.
I would assume the same thing.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's talk about some of the visuals and the sound design and all of this stuff from this game is, for the time, pretty groundbreaking. Now, it's not like graphics like this weren't being produced on other things. I'm sure there were computer games, because computers, PCs that are built for gaming typically are better performing than consoles. But
yeah, it's always been that way. It always will be.
Yep. So just get used to it, folks. But the Rare used pre-rendered graphics to produce DKC's highly detailed characters and environments, and it's amazing how good this game still looks today. It's very fluid in its animation, and this is actually something that Cranky Kong, who is, according to the Donkey Kong Country lore, he is the original Donkey Kong from the arcade game, and anytime you go visit him, he usually dispenses hints and secrets and stuff like that about the game. But while you're there talking to him, he usually brings up the fact that back in his day, you had low animation frame counts and low resolution, and you didn't need all this fancy stuff that is present in.
We only had 8 bits and 8 colors and 8 sound effects.
Right. And it was a little like fourth wall breaking humor that was really nice. He was the funniest part of that game. Anytime I passed one of his cabins, I always made, even if I didn't care about like the hints, that I just want to hear what crazy thing he's gonna say about the game.
Yep. The game actually, when you boot it up, it starts with him on one of the girders from the original Donkey Kong arcade game, and he's playing it like an old gramophone.
Yeah.
And it's the music from the arcade game. And then, of course, Donkey Kong Current jumps down, knocks down the girder, and it has a boombox because it's the 90s and everybody had a boombox. And it starts playing the Donkey Kong Country music. So,
and then before the title card pops up, Cranky Kong, he like sneaks in from one of the sides of the screen and throws a TNT barrel at Donkey Kong, and everything blows up, and then you see the title frame pop up. And from there was a way to get to a sound test. I think you spelled barrel. I think, so it was BARR, and then what would have maybe YL.
Yeah,
because there's not an E.
There's not an E on the controller, but there's a Y.
Yeah, and there's another code that you could put in for something else, and I think it might have been like get your lives up to 99 or something. I'd have to look it up, but
game packs.
That's right. Right. If there's good old game facts, I love them. But yeah, so, and I remember listening to the music from that game with that sound test, sometimes for hours. David Wise did such an amazing job really capturing the jungle aesthetic of the game. So good.
So the sound test is go to erase game and press down ARBY, down AY, select.
Oh yeah, Derby Day.
Yeah. And then so barrel is start with 50 lives, and it's Barrayl. And boy, okay. Al. Barral.
Al. Okay.
Barral. Yeah.
Are those the only two?
There's a couple others on. Let's see, Bad Buddy code on game select screen. Highlight erase data. Press BA down, B up down, down Y, and then A. So you literally spell Bad Buddy.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and that let the second player or whoever's not in, because there was a 2-player mode, and
free switching between 2 players.
Yeah. So the person who was not in control could take control from you.
Oh man, that would be aggravating.
Yes, I remember playing like that a few times, and it was. That's why anytime I played 2-player, I preferred to play where it was almost like Mario Brothers, where you would play a level and then the other player would get to play a level instead of you playing at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, and so the 4th cheat code, you spelled Diddy, D-Y-D-D-Y, down Y, down, down Y, to practice the bonus rounds.
Oh.
While the intro is playing, you spell Diddy. So.
I'm not sure I knew about that one.
Yeah.
That's cool. Some of those bonuses were hard, too.
Of course. This game is hard.
It is hard. If you're looking for a platform that's going to pat you on the back, maybe
not this one.
Not this one. Check out one of the new Super Mario Brothers games. Those will. Heck,
they're fun, but they're way easier.
They're easy, and I think in one of them it will practically play the game for you if you want it to.
Yeah, if you die like 10 times in a row or something, Luigi will come out and beat the level for you.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happens in like Super Mario Galaxy 2. Like this Galactic Rosalina will show up.
Yeah.
Like play the game for you. I always hated that.
Yeah, there's I much preferred in Super Mario 3D Land. That's the one for 3DS. If you died so many times, when you started the level again, it gave you basically that game's equivalent of a P-Wing at the beginning of the level, so that if you wanted to just fly through it, you could. But it was like, here's a crutch to help you get through it, but you could skip it if you wanted to, and even if you did take it, you still had to play the level.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the game just took over.
Yeah, a P-Wing is not an automatic win. It just makes it way easier.
Yes.
I've actually... Oh, okay. This is nothing to do with this game.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought up P-Wings, and I just remembered. When I was doing my Let's Play Super Mario Brothers 3, I saved my P-Wings for World 8 and World 5 a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, on the I always called it the submarine. It's the super fast airship with the tiny platforms.
Yes.
So I had a turbo controller. So I selected a P-Wing and I just held down the A button on turbo, and I actually went out of bounds and died.
I didn't even know you could do that.
I didn't know you could do that either. Okay. But I thought, I'll totally breeze through this level, just hold the A button. Yeah, no, you still have to play the game.
That's awful.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Because there's no limit to the height on that level, so Mario just kept going up and up and up until the data ran out. I couldn't believe it. Like all of a sudden, I just hear the death sound, and I see him fall through the screen. I'm like, what's going on?
Let that be a lesson to you.
So you can find it on my Let's Play channel. Like, you go to World 8 and watch it. It's there. I don't know the time code, but it's there.
I'm definitely gonna check that out. Actually, LJ, when you make the show notes, maybe go find that and link to it in the down below so people can check that out, because that sounds hilarious. I love little like you've mentioned before, when you record little glitches and stuff. I love seeing stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Nothing like that in this game that I know of. I'm sure there's bugs because
definitely there are bugs and glitches. This game is 22 years old. People have been able to exploit it the heck out of it by now.
Right. And nothing, no matter how much time and energy you put into something, you'll never get a piece of software that's just completely bug free. At least I don't think. I guess in theory it's possible, but I don't. I don't see
not going to happen.
Nope.
One of the greatest games of all time, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, is actually one of the most broken games ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, people praise how well that game is made and et cetera, et cetera. If you really look into it, it is bad. I love the game, but man, is it bad.
Yep. And I miss the days when, because back then, when you released the game, that was it. And unless, like, I guess you mentioned that Super Mario World got some of the cartridges that were released later have a slight...
Well, even Ocarina of Time, it got a 1.1 and 1.2 re-release.
Right.
They changed a couple of graphics because I guess they were offensive to people. But anyway, we're not discussing that. But yeah. Like, in order to patch a game back then, you had to re-release a whole new printing of cartridges.
Yep.
And that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then those old cartridges are still out there in the wild. You have no control over that.
Right. So when you release the game, you'd better make sure it worked.
Yeah.
And all the way, I can remember, I think the very first time that Nintendo ever patched a game to fix something that was wrong with it post-release. I could be wrong about this, but I want to say it was Metroid Other M for Wii.
Yes. I would say that was the first time also.
Yeah, and that was not that long ago.
No.
Now I know, like, when you bought Smash Brothers for Wii, that was Brawl, right? Not Melee. Yeah, Melee was GameCube. There was an update that you had to do, so it was kind of like a patch, but it wasn't.
There was a system update.
Yeah, and it wasn't to fix something in the game that was broken. It was just an update for your Wii. So the first time I remember ever getting a notice from Nintendo, hey, there's a patch for a game because something in this is broken, was Other M, and that again was not that long ago. And that's one of the reasons why, it's just in my personal opinion, why the very least the quality of the games that Nintendo releases is better than, because Microsoft and Sony, and not just them, but Bungie and Activision and all of them, they'll send a game off to print before it's done.
Yeah.
Then you have to download, like, sometimes man, the day one patch for Master Chief Collection was almost as big as the game.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, and then there was like a patch later to reduce the size of the game.
Yeah,
you had to download a patch to like fix the patch.
Right, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like, just ship the game working. Why can't you do that? This was a big tangent, so let's get back to talking about gorillas and apes and monkeys.
Gorillas and bananas.
Right.
Yeah.
So Donkey Kong Country introduced much of the Kong, and I have in quotes family because they're not all related to each other, even though they all share a last name. Some weird stuff.
It would be like if your name was, you were Patrick Human and I was Joel Human.
Yes. Would be absolutely correct. So Cranky Kong, as we mentioned earlier, is the original Donkey Kong from the arcade games. Donkey Kong is the son of Donkey Kong Jr. from the arcade games, and Donkey Kong Jr. was also in the very first Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo. So that would make this Donkey Kong Cranky Kong's grandson. Diddy Kong is DK's nephew, so that must mean somewhere out there Donkey Kong has a brother or sister that we just don't ever hear from.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not speaking to each other. Beats me. Or maybe Rare retained the rights to this person or Kong went over to Microsoft and now they're not speaking. Candy Kong is DK's girlfriend, And Funky Kong is a friend of the family. So no relation to any of the other Kongs. Of course, if you've played later Donkey Kong games, this whole apes with Kong names kind of gets out of hand, and there's like 15 of them or something. But in this one, it was pretty small. And each of the characters had their own role to play in the game. Diddy Kong, of course, is the other playable character. And I mentioned Cranky Kong dispenses hints and tips and stuff like that. Candy Kong was the save point in the game. And Funky Kong is what you needed his barrel plane thing.
He was fast travel.
Yes, that was it. To move from, I guess, stage. Is that what you would call the
it was from world to world.
That's, world to world. And
it's like there are all the stages within the world, but you go to Funky Kong, and you would fly his plane around the island to get to places you'd already been.
Right. And I know in later ones, he actually charged you some kind of currency for that.
Yeah.
Did he charge in the first one?
I think you had to collect a certain number, because like all the collectibles are limited in this first game, aside from bananas. And
right.
So like once you had collected a certain amount, he would let you use it or something like that. It's been too long.
Right.
Like we said at the beginning of the show, we didn't have time to play it, so things are a little fun.
So, but yeah, I know in later games, he charged, and Cranky Kong opened up a shop, and he would charge for things, and that's when Rare slowly started their descent into collectathon craziness.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, the 3D collectathons are just an evolution of these 2D platformers, which were already collectathons. Even in the first Mario game, like you collected coins and other power-ups, and then as it went along, like things just kind of grew. And there were lots of other platformers that had collectathon aspects to them.
Yep.
But this one is what really like blew it up.
Yeah, because you had the bananas, and then you had the Kong letters.
Yep.
Which those give you, was it extra lives?
Yeah. Once you spelled out Kong, you got a 1-up. And there was there were actual like 1-up balloons to collect. And there was the Kong coins, I want to say, and there were banana coins.
Yep.
And you got those from doing bonus games. You find a secret area and do a bonus game. And
yeah,
there's
and a lot of
DK coin also. So there were 3 different coins.
Yes, and a lot of the bonus stages or bonus areas were sometimes the hardest part of the game, which is finding them. Yeah,
like there's one where you literally have to blind jump into a pit, and because there's a barrel just off screen. Yeah, and so like. If the only hint you've ever been given is it's in a pit somewhere, then you're going to lose a lot of lives trying to find that one pit.
That. And most of those off-screen barrels, like they would have one banana kind of floating above them, but that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
And even then, I never had this problem, but I did read that I guess some old CRT TVs wouldn't always have all of the frame in the picture that you could see. So sometimes even that banana, depending on what TV you were using, it wouldn't show up because it's
on our modern HD TVs, like the whole picture is displayed.
Yeah.
But on the old CRTs, they're like the edge of the screen was cut off by the like physical frame of the TV.
Right. And that's why in television we have what we call a safe title zone. And there's another one that's smaller than that, and now I can't remember what it was called. But basically the rule is if you have any text on the screen, it has to be within this box to guarantee that everyone who's watching it can see it.
Yep.
And even though, we live in a modern age with really nice HD TVs, most video producers still follow that safe title, because every now and then you do get that random person that just won't let go of their 4x3 TV screen. So your beautiful HD picture that you've created the left and right sides of it get chopped off.
Yep. My parents have a CRT sitting in the living room right now. And they cut the cable and got a Blu-ray player so they could watch Netflix. And the Blu-ray player only had HDMI output.
I would imagine.
And so they had to get an adapter cable. Of course, they got the cheapest one they could find.
Right.
Rather than like getting an actual converter box, they bought the cheapest adapter cable thing. And so it works, but of course, like you said, it cuts off the edges, and there's an artifact flicker at the bottom that drives me nuts, but they don't care. They're old and they don't see it.
Right. My grandmother still watches SD stuff on her HD TV, so everything's stretched.
Oh,
and I'm like,
she doesn't want the black bars.
Right. I'm like, yes, but now
it looks weird.
Yeah, he looks like he's 20 pounds heavier than he really is. Why are you okay with this? And she always tells me, like, well, I don't notice. And I'll go, Grandma, look at the bottom left corner of the screen. You see the ABC logo? That should be a circle. And it's an oval.
And it's
because you're stretching it.
Oh.
She doesn't care. So, but hey, whatever makes you happy, right? I can't.
I was told that people will put up with good pictures as long as they have good. People will put up with a bad picture as long as they have good sound. Which is why it took so long for HD to actually become popular. And
I'm the same way. When I moved to a 5.1 surround sound system long before I upgraded to an HD TV, because my thing was, if I can hear it, and especially playing video games, when you get a game that the sound is mixed right and you can hear that helicopter coming from behind you, I went, that actually helps me play this game. The image being crystal clear, I mean, yeah, if it's a crappy image, it's going to affect how I play, but as long as I can tell what's happening, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
the first surreal surround sound experience I ever had, I was watching The Lord of the Rings on DVD, and there's a knock at the door. This is the first one. There's a knock at the door, right? So it comes out of the left speaker, and the door of our house was to the left. And so I looked over at the door thinking someone was knocking at the door, and the dog jumped up.
Yeah.
I kid you not. The dog was tricked by the surround sound.
Yeah.
So people will put up with a bad picture as long as they have good sound.
And that's how my grandmother is. It's like, as long as she can hear it, she doesn't care what it looks like. So more power to you.
Another tangent.
Yes. But so I had this game. Back in the day, you didn't really have GameStop or Electronics Boutique. I guess some malls were starting to see gaming specialty stores pop up.
You actually called it Electronics Boutique and not EB Games.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, because I remember that. And you could... So this was before... A lot of these game specialty stores were kind of starting to pop up in places, but they weren't all over the place like they are now. You could, though, walk into a Toys R Us and pre-buy most games. Now, you couldn't just drop $5 on it and then come pay it later. You had to pay for the whole thing when you came in for it. But this game came with the first pre-order bonus that I ever remember seeing, and it was a T-shirt that had the whole thing was printed in that kind of palm tree looking background that is in this game. Yeah. And then just Donkey Kong, like really big on the front of it. I don't even think the logo was anywhere on the shirt. I guess it might have been across the chest of it or something, but I feel like Donkey Kong's face was there. And I wore that thing out. In fact, I can't wear it because I'm too big for it, and it's got a giant hole in the back of it. But I'm pretty sure I still have it in a box somewhere because I just won't let go of it.
So it's like green and white, and the whole thing is Donkey Kong's face, pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. I think I found a picture of it.
Okay.
Like let's see, Skype.
That's it. Oh yeah, and then okay. So there's the tiny little logo kind of up at the top.
Yeah.
Left. But yeah, that is the shirt. Oh my goodness, that brings back memories. But yeah, I wore that thing to death. It was awesome. But yeah, I played this game so much that and it took me a while to beat actually because it's really hard. Like,
yeah.
You hear of that term Nintendo hard or Nintendo hard or like if they crammed it into one word, I don't remember. But this game pretty well embodied that. And I think the levels that I got stuck on there for a good while were the ice levels.
Of course.
Those were because then you get that. Those are always in every game that has an ice level. They're my least favorite, but they're in every game.
Yeah, it's like lava and ice are in every single video game. They have to be. It's a law.
and I don't. Okay, now I want to take that back a little bit because of how the mechanics worked for ice in Mario Galaxy. I didn't mind it so much because he did that ice skating thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't really slip and slide all over the darn place like they do in most games. I mean, he's still
every other game,
right? But yeah, in this it was just so hard. And this game had a lot of precision platforming. Sometimes you would jump to a little sliver of a platform that was really just big enough for Donkey Kong to fit on. And so you either had to know, like, I'm going to jump and I'm going to land on this, and then I'm going to jump immediately again because you're on ice. You're going to slip. So you're not going to just stay stationary on it. And that was so difficult to pull off. But, I finally got through it, and I've beat this game many, many, many times. Some of my favorite levels are the minecart, like, where you're just on the track, and it's taking you like a roller coaster almost.
Oh yeah,
those are some of my favorite because those were also some of the more difficult ones. Like there'd be a Kong letter off the track, and you'd have to just ride the cart off the track, collect the Kong letter, and then jump out of the cart into the next cart. Yeah.
Because even though the track is there, you can't land on the track. You have to land in a cart.
Right, because your Donkey Kong would just fall through the track, and
in a modern game like that track would have collision detection, and you'd land on the track.
Right, and but not this game.
Nope.
This game was like, forget you. You better land in that cart, or you're just dead. And that also had some of the things that I complained about in Sonic the Hedgehog was that you'd be going fast and you couldn't see what was off the screen. You'd run into it. And that actually was something that kind of happened in those levels, mostly with enemies that were also riding carts coming at you. So then not only do you have the speed of Donkey Kong and Diddy and the cart going from left to right, but you've also got this other thing coming at you pretty much just as fast as you're coming at it from off the screen. And then all of a sudden, there it is, and you're like, "What?" So
you kind of have to know it's coming.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it was,
which is how all those levels are. Like it's all about memorization.
Yeah.
Like even the regular levels, you have to memorize where things are in order to be good at it. And
right. Especially finding some of the bonus levels. I need to carry this metal barrel that I find at the very beginning of the level, and I'm not going to need it until about halfway through the level. But I can't, if I lose the barrel, then I can't get the secret bonus level. And a lot of times that meant not killing any enemies, because if you hit an enemy with the barrel would disappear. Or some barrels, even if you were holding it and you jumped on an enemy, Donkey Kong would let go of it and it would take off and you wouldn't be. So it was just avoid all of the enemies completely. Don't touch any of them. Did you grow up with this?
No, I remember I would go to the game store to look at games to rent. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd always see it, and I would go, I don't know what this game is. Like, I don't want to play it. Like, it looks weird, and which I kind of regret now. I wish I had. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really play Donkey Kong Country until Donkey Kong Country Returns. I have kind of a funny story about that game, actually.
Yeah.
While I was working at Best Buy, I had an old lady come up to me, and she said, I'm looking for Donkey Kong for the Y. And I did not understand what she said. Donkey Kong for the Y. I'm like, there's a lot of different Donkey Kong games. Which one is it? And she pulls out her little piece of paper, and she goes, Country Returns. And I'm like, Donkey Kong Country Returns. Oh, yes, for the Wii.
Yeah. So she was pronouncing the two I's as a
yes, because she had probably just only in text and never didn't have her grandkids say it's for the Wii. It was like not an entailed, Yeah, poor the old lady. I feel bad for her.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I skipped that one for Wii, but there was a 3DS port.
Yeah,
that I picked up that I really, really enjoy. That was developed by Retro Studios, who did the Metroid Prime games, and they did a fantastic job kind of recapturing what made these games great on the Super Nintendo, but also adding some new features and really making it their own.
Yeah, there's actually an Easter egg of Metroid Prime in the first Silhouette level. In Donkey Kong Country Returns. You can look in the background and see Samus's ship.
Huh. I must have missed that.
Yeah. So because it's Retro Studios, they had those assets.
Right.
I mean, a Wii is just like hyped up GameCube. It's the same hardware almost. So they just plopped it in there in the background.
Yeah. I think a guy who worked, or he might still work there, for Electronic Arts, very famously said of the Wii that it was just two GameCubes duct taped together.
Yeah, it really is.
Yep.
Like a Wii is that. It's two GameCubes strapped together because it's got the same controller ports, it's got the same memory card slots, it plays the physical media exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is. Yep. And it even has the same like outputs. Like to video.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. So
I remember the first time that I brought mine home, and it's like, oh, it plays GameCube games, and I had never put such a tiny disc in a big slot loader, and I was actually nervous about it. I'm like, what? I mean,
it's gonna eat it.
It works, but what's it gonna do? And I almost trust it. I was like, but obviously it worked perfectly fine. I can't believe I forgot about this when I was thinking about things to talk about. The little animal friends that they have, Rambi and Bird, and where's the other Espresso? I don't think I actually knew that's what the ostrich's name was.
Yeah, Espresso, which is a horrible mispronunciation of espresso. I worked at a coffee shop, and I couldn't stand it every time somebody ordered espresso. There's no X in that name.
Yes.
2 S's.
It's espresso. Winky the Frog, who I think he might have been my favorite of them all because he could jump really high.
I liked the bird because it reminds me of Kazooie because he shoots eggs.
I'm trying to remember.
Squawks the bird.
And I'm trying to remember him in this game, because I know in Donkey Kong Country 2, when you were Squawks, you actually turned into him.
Yeah. I want to... maybe Squawks wasn't in the first one.
Well, but I'm sitting here looking at the Wikipedia page, and it does say... No! Okay, there were a few levels where it was pitch black, and Squawks would fly behind you.
That's right. He had the flashlight, and every time you turned around, it blinded you.
Yes.
Oh, man.
And you'd want to go, Squawks, just turn the other way. Don't turn toward the camera.
What were the developers thinking?
They were probably thinking, hey, this looks really awesome.
No, why didn't they get a seizure doing that? My goodness.
Oh, but yeah. And Squawks, he was probably only in 1 or 2 levels. He didn't get used very much. But Rambi and Espresso and Ingard. Ingard, of course, in the water levels. And and you now when you beat a level with them, you didn't carry them into the.
Oh, it wasn't like Yoshi.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. They just
you hopped off at the end,
right?
Like in New Super Mario Brothers, you hop off of Yoshi at the end.
Yeah, and of course you would find these characters. They were in crates that always had a symbol on the outside of it, so you knew what was.
You had to throw a barrel at it or something,
right? Could you not jump on it? Maybe I can't.
Maybe you could. I might be getting the mechanics mixed up.
Right. And speaking of saving animals from crates, anytime you lost. So when you played the game, whether you were playing single player or multiplayer, it was Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong together. But when one of them would get hit, I mean, you basically had 2 hits before you died, as long as you had both of them. And anytime one of them would get hit, or whoever was in the front would get hit, they would appear later in the level in a DK barrel.
Yeah,
you'd actually hear them like knocking on it and making
noise. Yeah, little monkey sounds.
Yep.
Actually, when you start the game, you start as Donkey Kong, and you have to free Diddy from the barrel.
Right. You do have to
get
free
your second hit.
Speaking of the beginning of this game, this is the first time I ever played a platformer where you start the level and you actually kind of want to check to the left to see if there is anything there before heading out. Because in the first level, you could get back up into DK's treehouse, and there was a one-up balloon.
There was a one-up balloon. And then you go below his house, and
is where his
banana horde is missing. You get that funny little animation.
Right. And there's another level still in that first world where you start the level coming out of a cave, but if you get up on top of the cave and walk all the way up to the top, there's a barrel, and that barrel will basically shoot you all the way to the end of the level.
Yep.
And there's a second set of Kong letters up there so that you don't miss collecting KONG. You just get it that way. But that was, that was really cool. I had never seen, and now 2D platformers do that kind of stuff a lot. In fact, Limbo, if you ever played that, there's a kind of like a series of things you can collect in that game, and the very first one is right to the left of the screen, and you would totally miss it at the beginning of the game if you weren't thinking to go that way. But thanks to Donkey Kong Country, every time I boot up a 2D platformer, the first thing I do is I head left just to see, because you never know.
Yep. I've never played Limbo. I should.
It's a good game, but it's kind of twisted and messed up.
Yeah. No, I've seen it, but I've never played it.
And I want to say it's on 360, PS3, and PC.
Yeah.
I don't. So this game also introduced the Kremlings, which
the crocodiles.
The enemies of this game. Of course, this game was using an existing IP, Donkey Kong, but not kind of recreating everything around it, because you didn't have Mario in it. You didn't have the idea of there being a damsel in distress, or even in Donkey Kong Jr., when you played as DK Jr. saving Donkey Kong from Jumpman, or was he called Mario in that one?
I don't remember.
I don't either, and I'd have to look it up if I were going to. So they had to create this whole new world and all these new characters, and that's of course where the other Kongs came from. But then you had King K. Rool, which when you squish K and Rool together, you get Cruel.
Oh, so funny.
Punny. And of his legion of Kremlings, which were all crocodiles that. I mean, they basically, if you've ever played a Mario game, it's just like with Goombas and Koopa Troopas. They basically, like, different ones had different walking patterns, and some of them, there was one that wore like a war helmet, so you couldn't jump on him. You had to either roll into him or throw a barrel at him. A lot of different enemy.
I'll always remember the name of the little one with the big mouth is called a claptrap.
Yep.
That's a comedy device, a claptrap, and you know it fits well. The name fits well.
Yep.
Little dude.
Mm-hmm. And you get all the way to the end. The bosses. Can't forget the bosses. They were usually just giant versions of... I mean, like, you had a few unique bosses, but I remember there was the Bumblebee. And
Vulture.
There's a Vulture. I think in the factory level, it was just a giant oil can that was falling from the sky, which was really weird. It was almost as if it was sentient or something.
Postmodern allegory of the Industrial Revolution and how it ruined everything. And
right.
We're fighting the machine. And
and in every boss lair, I guess you could call it, you know, it was always decorated with the Kong stolen banana horde.
Yeah, the banana horde was in the background.
And a few of the bosses, like later on in the game, were just harder versions of earlier bosses. Maybe they moved faster, or I guess a couple of them maybe had different patterns that they added to it. But a lot of them were... I found quite a few of them to be difficult, even though most of them were pretty short. Because it wasn't like you played a level that ended in the boss fight. The boss fight was just a spot on the world map.
Yeah.
Unlike like Super Mario World or Super Mario 3, when you got to where the boss fight was, you had to play a level before you got to the boss of the world, and it's not how this worked. And it all climaxed at the end with Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong fighting King K. Rool on his pirate ship.
Spoilers.
Oh no. Wasn't that pirate ship like at the top of the mountain or something? Where was it?
Yeah.
It was somewhere.
Like, didn't you climb up the mountain?
Yeah, and then the pirate ship is like, why is this here? What?
I need to look at the map again.
Yeah, because I could be way off, but I feel like the whole time you're slowly ascending to the top of a mountain, and then there's
a pirate ship.
Galleon.
You go back down at the end to get to the pirate ship.
I don't see now. I want to see it. So DK.
But yeah, I know that you start on the pirate ship in Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yes.
So that's a nice little segue between the two games. And I know that if you beat Donkey Kong Country the first time, Cranky Kong would come out and say, you know, I beat this 100% in such amount of time. And, you know, if you do that, you get nothing for it.
Yeah. It's just bragging rights, I guess.
It's just a joke the developers put in the game. Like, they didn't expect anybody to actually do that.
Right. Okay, so I'm looking at a very low resolution picture, and so you start at the bottom left corner of the map, work your way to the right, and then up the mountain, but then you do come back down.
Okay.
And the ship is... It's really weird, because the ship is out in the ocean, and if Donkey Kong would have just come out of his house and gone into his backyard, there it is. Like, what's with all this other stuff?
Well, he is a gorilla. They're not very smart.
That's true. And I guess he had to save his banana horde from all the other bosses.
That is your main objective in this game, is to save your bananas.
Yep. I know. And especially since there's just bananas everywhere, you'd think he would be like, oh, okay, you took all my bananas. So what? These things literally grow on trees.
Yep.
All over the place. But then you wouldn't have much of a game if that's how it worked.
It's not like trying to save the island or something, or like at least in Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong is captured and Diddy Kong has to go save him.
Right.
Like, that's, you know, a reason to play the game.
Mm-hmm. And Donkey Kong Country 3, it's now Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong have been captured, and Dixie and Kitty.
Kitty, oh yay,
have to go save them. And yeah, I really liked Donkey Kong Country 2. I did not care much for 3.
That's how everyone is, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people who like DKC 2 more than the first one. I'm not one of them, but I understand that, point of view, because DKC 2 is really good. Okay, I think we've covered just about everything. A little trivia here, and I didn't write any of my... Oh, well, I did write some trivia down, but before I get to that little tidbit, I wanted to mention that when this game got shown to Nintendo, this is what made Hiroshi Yamauchi, who was the president and owner of Nintendo way back when, decide that he wanted to acquire a significant portion of Rare. So Nintendo bought 49% of the company, and Rare was then secured as a second-party developer. And it stayed that way until just before the Xbox 360 launched and Microsoft came in and bought Nintendo out, which... I remember when that was happening, kind of being torn about that, because it was like, I love this developer and I'm going to miss seeing their games on Nintendo. But at that point, it had been quite a few years since Rare had a really big hit come out for anything. She had, of course, the N64, there was the Banjo-Kazooie, those 2 games, and then Donkey Kong 64, Perfect Dark, Jet Force Gemini, which I love Jet Force Gemini, and I can't believe they haven't revisited that IP. But then after that, you had Star Fox Adventures, and hopefully this pirate game, and I don't even know what it's called. But what I saw of it at their E3 presentation last year looked really, really good. So hopefully Rare will come back and do some great things.
Yeah.
So, of course, a lot of that team is now making Yooka-Laylee.
Woo!
Which is exciting.
We mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, that's supposed to come out this year, right?
I think so. Oh, now I need to look it up.
Did you back it?
I did not. I did not. I went to go back it, and then it was like over $1 million at that point. I was like, forget it. They don't need my money.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't wind up backing it. I was like, y'all are good. I'll just pick it up.
I'll just buy the game when it comes out,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing release date.
No. Okay. I was thinking someone said it was supposed to. Well, and considering that it's supposed to come out for Wii U, I hope it comes out this year. It's what I heard.
I'm seeing box art, but that looks like fan art.
Yeah. I was thinking that one of their stretch goals was that there was going to be a Wii U version of it. And considering Nintendo's looking like they're going to be moving away from the Wii U very soon.
Oh, okay. On the Yooka-Laylee page, there's Windows, Mac, Linux, Xbox One, PS4, and Wii U.
Okay.
So that's every platform other than handhelds.
Yeah. So if they want it to come out for Wii U and for it to sell, it should probably come out this year. I wonder if they'll release a version for NX. Who knows? Okay, and last little bit of trivia. It's not so much related to Donkey Kong Country, just as it's just relevant for the time that we're talking about this, and has a little bit to do with Donkey Kong and Nintendo itself and their history. But in the last Nintendo earnings call, just last week, I want to say it was, Nintendo announced that Nintendo of America would be selling most of its stake in the Seattle Mariners. They're going to retain 10%. Howard Lincoln is the CEO currently of the team, and he's going to be stepping down, but he will remain on the board of directors. Now, how that's related to Donkey Kong is Howard Lincoln was the attorney for Nintendo back in the 80s, who successfully argued in court that Universal Studios could not claim ownership of the Kong name. And Universal Studios was suing Nintendo over Donkey Kong because they owned the movie rights to King Kong.
Yep.
But Lincoln discovered that Universal Studios, when they started making King Kong movies and using that name, didn't exactly go through all the proper channels to acquire the rights to the Kong name themselves. And so they could not claim ownership of that name. And so the judge threw the case out, and Nintendo was able to continue selling Donkey Kong arcade cabinets, which of course allowed for this game to exist at all. So,
Donkey Kong is the reason why Nintendo even has any presence in the West at all.
Right.
They had made one other game before Donkey Kong, and it did well in Japan, but not in the United States.
Yeah.
And Donkey Kong put him on the map.
Indeed he did. And he's still in lots of games. Most of them are good. Can't say that about all of them, but you know, when you've been in games for, I think the original Donkey Kong arcade cabinet was, I want to say it was 35.
Yeah, it was like 1980.
Yeah, it's been a while. So, but yeah, there's been Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong. This version of Donkey Kong has appeared in Smash Brothers and Mario Kart games, and
he's been in every Smash Brothers game.
That's true.
He's been in almost every Mario Kart game. Not Super Mario Kart.
Except the first one, because that was Donkey Kong Jr.
He's been in every Mario Party game, I want to say, either as a playable character or as a villain.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's in Mario Party 10, now that I think about it.
I don't think I've played that one.
Yeah. Anyway, he was in Punch-Out for the Wii as a secret boss.
Yeah, and we talked about that when we talked about Punch-Out.
And all those different Mario sports games.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he's not the only Kong to appear in Mario sports games. Because I know, like, Funky Kong is playable in Mario Kart Wii, and
oh yeah, he is.
And like in Super Mario Sluggers, the baseball game, like there's several other Kongs, like Lanky Kong and Tiny Kong. Like Tiny Kong grew up and appears in Super Mario Sluggers.
Right.
And yeah, it's weird.
The sports games get kind of out of hand with their characters. That's where Waluigi came from, right?
Yeah, Waluigi was in Mario Tennis, the N64.
Yeah, like,
Wario needed a partner. Yeah. Just put up 7 and make him purple and.
Anyway. And then like the letter on his hat is just an L, but it's
an L that's upside down, so it looks like
and it's so weird.
And now in Japanese, Waluigi actually makes more sense than in English. It means bad Luigi.
Oh,
but like in English, it doesn't make any sense. It's like they tried to mix Wario and Luigi, and it's weird because actually Wario means like bad Mario. Gosh, no. It means more than that. It can mean bad Mario, but Wario means more than that in Japanese. I can't remember. But yeah, Waluigi means bad Luigi. Because Waru means bad.
Interesting. I never knew that. I figured Wario was just a simple, let's flip the M upside down.
Yeah, you would think that, right? But it's a little more than that.
Cool. Maybe I need to learn to speak Japanese and I'll understand all this weird stuff.
That is almost the extent of my Japanese knowledge.
Yeah. Right.
I know a little bit more than that, but yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's all we have to say about Donkey Kong Country. So we played 20 questions last week, and we weren't sure that it went real well, but LJ, our sound guy, said that it was really funny, and apparently his cousin really liked it, so you can't ever say we don't listen to our fans. So back by LJ's cousin demand, we are going to play 20 questions again. Of course, it'll just be me guessing the game because Nolan's not here. I'll go ahead and pull up my Skype window so that if I get stuck and LJ wants to throw a few questions in, we can. But so Joel knows what game we're going to play next week. I do not. Neither does LJ. and I am going to try and guess in 20 questions what that game is. So,
all right, let's do this.
All right, so let's see. Is it on a Nintendo console?
There is a version on a Nintendo console.
There is a version on a Nintendo console. Okay, so that tells me that it was not developed or published by Nintendo. Is it a fighting game?
Yes.
All right. So is the game also on the Sega Genesis?
Yes.
Is there blood in the Genesis version, but not the Nintendo? Okay, is it Mortal Kombat?
Yes, you figured that out way too quickly.
Well, when you said there's a version, I was like, okay, what do I know? I like actually right after you answered that question, I went, I bet it's Mortal Kombat, but I'm gonna go into some more.
You wanted a little more detail.
Yeah, before I just guess. Well, that was 5 questions. So
yeah, very good. I shouldn't have given you that big of a hint at the beginning, I guess.
Right.
I should have just said yes and let you be confused.
Right, because then I would have been like, oh, okay. And then I probably would have gotten all the way to question 18 and been so far down.
Than I did last week.
Right.
Yeah. But if you're going to play this game with us, I recommend you get not the SNES version.
Yes.
I think every other version on like modern consoles and on the Genesis has blood in it. Mm-hmm. To get the blood in the Genesis version, though, you have to spell out Abacab. A-B-B-A-C. Oh, gosh. A-B-A-C-A-B-B. Abacab with 2 B's. A-B-A-C-A-B-B.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to mean something, or is that just how people remember it?
That's just how you remember it. You just say Abacab.
Okay.
It's A-B-A-C-A-B-B.
I never knew that, so. All right.
There are other codes, but that's the only one I remember.
Yeah. I've played a Mortal Kombat game. I'm not very good at them. And really any fighting game where it's about combos, I'm not, or like button combos, I'm not good at that. I'm good at Tekken and Soul Calibur and Smash Brothers, even though a lot of people would say that's not a fighting game, but I think you're wrong.
It wasn't fighting game of the year. For the Wii U when it came out on the Wii U.
So, but yeah, I'm not very good at Street Fighter. I'm not good at Mortal Kombat, but yeah, it'll be good to dig that out somewhere. Surely I have a copy of it on something. But anyway, that'll do it. We'll, even though Nolan's not here, I'll go ahead and plug him. You can find Nolan Brown on Twitter at Bassman214. That's Bassman. It's not Bassman. As far as I know, he's never fished a day in his life. That's probably not.
He plays the bass.
I bet that's right. He plays the bass. He's probably fished. I mean, who hasn't fished at least once, right?
Yeah. I fished, but I never caught a bass. Yeah,
I've fished like a fishing pond where you're kind of just guaranteed to get a fish.
No, I didn't go there.
Yeah. Right. Hey, I'm okay with that. I got to eat. And that's the only reason I was doing it in the first place.
I'd rather buy my fish, actually. I don't care about fishing them out.
I'm definitely with you there. Joel, where can we find you on the internet?
Anywhere you can find me on the internet. You can find me under Obi-Wan Kenobi, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I also have a Let's Play channel on YouTube. Don't put in the URL, just search Obi-Wan Kenobi _LP. You'll find me. Because like most people who've changed their name on YouTube, it's just a bunch of random numbers and letters now.
Woo! So, yes. Awesome.
But Obi-Wan Kenobi is my vlog channel. Obi-Wan Kenobi OP is my Let's Play channel. I don't really update them, but you can go watch the old videos. They're kind of neat. And of course, I stream every Saturday for Geeks Under Grace on twitch.tv/Geeks Under Grace. I like to play Star Wars games because I like Star Wars. So Star Wars Saturdays, yay!
In case Obi-Wan Kenobi was not
it's
not a hint enough that he likes Star Wars. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/AboveParProductions. That's just production. There's no S, even though when I'm saying it really fast, there's kind of an S at the end of it. Don't put an S, you won't find me. Twitter @PatrickProper, twitch.tv/HugeCowPatty, and everything else you can find from my website at patrickallenryan.com. And like I said, my ministry needs name. So if you go and watch the videos and you're like, hey, I've got an idea for that, shoot me a tweet or message me on Facebook or something like that. You can find this podcast. Of course, you are listening to it, so you probably know where to find it on Podbean or your favorite podcast app. But we are now also on Google Play Music. You just search for Original Gamers Podcast, and we pop up there alongside a lot of your other favorite podcasts. So make sure you subscribe to us. You can find us on Twitch, on a Twitch channel we still have not used, Original Gamers Podcast. We're on Instagram at official.ogcast. And of course, we are always looking for new and exciting ways to expand ourselves on the internet. I almost forgot. We now have some premium content on Podbean.
That's right.
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking to it because this is probably something that we're going to mention at the end of every episode. But just very briefly, we do have some very small costs that go along with making this podcast. We have to pay for Podbean. Every now and then, one of us will say, hey, I want to play a game, and one of us doesn't own it. So that person either has to just hope that they know the game well enough from having played it from their childhood to just remember it, or they need to go buy it. Most of the time, that's a couple of bucks here and there, $2 or $3, or even if you buy it from Nintendo's Virtual Console or on Xbox or something, most of the time they're no more than $5 or $6, depending on what the game is. But then also, what you don't get to see because there's not a video is that I'm using a gaming headset as a microphone, and it does the job, but it's not really built for that, so it might be nice to have a new mic. If you've ever seen Nolan's microphone, though, I'm pretty sure he got that at the bottom of a Honey Nut Cheerios box a long time ago because it's just awful looking.
It's supposed to be a snowball, but I think it's broken.
Yeah.
Those are good microphones, but his is not working properly.
Right. So just little things like that. And, we're not asking for a whole ton of money, and we will never, ever, ever, at least in our plans right now, nor do I see it becoming part of our plans for the future, will we ever charge you for this podcast. But if you do go to Podbean and check out the premium content, we're going to do things like maybe one day Nolan wants to talk about his favorite video game composer. And since this podcast is not about composers, it's about games, then he'll sit down and he'll talk about it for 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long it is he thinks he can fill with that. Maybe Joel wants to talk about a new Star Wars movie. It's pretty much just anything that we want to talk about that's geeky. It might be retro game related. It might not be retro game related. It's just something that we want to talk about. And for the most part, I would imagine that these are going to be things that we record by ourselves. But every now and then, like maybe I want to talk about, I don't know, I want to talk about Nintendo as a developer. And I'll go, hey, this would be something that would be really cool for all three of us to talk about. So we'll do it together. But I imagine for the most part, it's just going to be us solo talking to you guys and that stuff. So and there's other rewards, but that's the one that no matter how much you contribute to us, you're going to get access to that. So go check that out. LJ is going to link to that in the show notes for this episode of the podcast and every episode of the podcast going forward. So if you would like to help us out with some of these little expenses that we have, awesome. If not, we're just happy that you're here listening to us ramble on about what video games were like when we were kids, because we enjoy doing it. Speaking of that, we want to hear from you guys, so please look us up on Twitter. It's official OGcast, and talk to us. Ask us questions. Hopefully the questions will be related for you. I got tongue tied there. Hopefully the questions will be related to the podcast, but if maybe you just have a question that you want to ask us or whatever, feel free. We're very friendly people and very open. You can also tweet at us individually. The Nolan and Joel and my own Twitter.
I don't log into the OGcast Twitter, so
yeah.
I mean, I should, but I just haven't. So if you want to get a hold of me for this show, tweet at me on my personal.
Right. And if you would like to watch us play games and you're tired of checking the Twitch channel and us not being there, fuss at us. Maybe if enough of you complain, we'll start doing it.
Yeah, please. I will make the time if people want to see it.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it. We opened the podcast with Jungle Hijinks, which is the first level of Donkey Kong Country. I decided to buck the trend of starting with the title screen and ending with the credits. So we're going to end the podcast with one of my favorite tracks, not just from this game, but from the entire Donkey Kong Country series, which is Fear Factory. So please enjoy that. And we will catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. Be good, humans. It's got the controller ports and the... what was that?
That was me shaking my drink and the straw shaking violently against it. And I went, whoop, that's making a noise.
Good job, Patrick. Bloopers, yay. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great.